Hey guys, welcome back to the Imperial Goddess Diaries podcast. My name is Louisa, and today we're going to be discussing things about me this time and the identity shift that I've experienced in the past 2 weeks. Now, you're going to be joining me while I get ready, so it's going to be like a get ready with me, but it's really not. I'm just finding the time to do my makeup and this video at the same time. I'm a little bit late with this upload, and I just wanted to grab it and just throw it in right now. And I wanted to express this to you guys and how I've been feeling lately. So let's get started. So yes, I'm wearing this shirt. I made it years ago when I was in comps, and all my friends wore it. I did a fitness comp. I did 2 fitness comps. Team Louisa the Great. That was my old Instagram name. We're gonna get onto my Instagram very soon. But yeah, I love this shirt, and I've wanted to make more shirts of myself for ages. So we're going to be discussing today this huge identity shift that I've experienced in the past couple of weeks. And I haven't experienced this sort of radical level of switching my identity possibly since like the start of my awakening back in like 2020, when I was suffering through the ego death, which many of you may experience or may have not experienced yet, or you're going through right now. So just so you know, the ego deaths don't stop, and you keep going through them, but you just get better at them each time. But this one in particular was a complete like shattering breakdown of who I was, and it was operating on an old system that I had. It's probably still lingering, but it's given me more awareness on what I'm doing with this system and how the system has just been holding me back. And I had this big cathartic sort of breakdown, and I don't really cry very often. But it was, interestingly enough, is a week before that I did this breathwork meditation where I did a big release and I did a cry, and I hadn't cried in months like that. And I was like, okay, interesting. And then it was just like the week leading up to the bigger release, it was like I would just cry a little bit every day, and I'm like, I was like, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening in there? What's happening in those ethers? What's happening in the soul, in my body? And then I had this big sort of release, and it was all the things that you think it was going to be. But I was crying to Nathan, and he said, Louisa, you need to get rid of your other Instagram account, which is my personal account. And this personal account has been with me since like I opened it, which is like probably back in like 2009. Yeah, I think 2009. So it's connected to like an older identity of mine, and it's rolled with me for years. And I've just kind of like, for some reason, just really tried to keep it alive. I've been like shadow banned on it a couple of times, and I think I was really just trying to work to keep that account alive as much as possible. And it was putting in a lot of work for me, and also it was wasting my time on it. I kept checking people's stories and checking things, and then self-comparison and kind of was rife. And I just found myself really exhausted by it. And Nathan was like, you need to get rid of it. You need to just focus on Imperium. So that's a really big thing for me, because I've always been I've been largely focused on social media. Like, it's in my chart to be online. It's in my chart to do with technology. So it's like something that I'm really tied to. But it felt so freeing to get rid of it and to not have it there anymore. I then deleted it. I deactivated it for a week, and I know I selected don't come back until I say so, until I reactivate. It decided after 7 days it's reappeared, and I'm like, I don't want this anymore. And the feeling that I got when I looked at it again was like, ugh. So I had this immediate ick to my old self. I even would look at images of myself like a couple of months ago, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? So it was, when you go through a massive, massive shift, you can even look at yourself like a week ago and think, who is that? And it's very, very, very quick, and it's very bold, and it's very confronting. So it was kind of exciting to experience this with more awareness, because when I have experienced this before, it was a little bit more scary. But at this time, I was just like, my soul self was like, hell yeah, this is cool. But all of my ego self was like, I'm slipping through the cracks. I can't hold on to me anymore. So that was really interesting. And the second thing that I had to deal with was mastering the art of forgiveness. Now, I haven't quite mastered this as of yet, but I got this really interesting sort of like message, kind of like download thing. And it was just about forgiveness. And it's not really forgiving other people, it's forgiving yourself. And so I've started to curate a workshop around this. So obviously I'll let you guys know when that's all happening. Actually, that's a long brush. I'll let you guys know when that's all happening, because I feel like this is something really important, and I feel like this specific thing has really set me free. Forgiveness for myself is huge, and it's been really hard for me to just like let go of parts of me that have put myself in situations where I've been around people who haven't deserved like my energy or my light or my love, and I beat myself up over it all the time. And I'll constantly either get reminded, being on social media, which is another great way why I deleted mine. I'm constantly reminded of things that have pissed me off in the past. So it's a good out of sight, out of mind thing, because it's a great way to heal when things are out of sight, out of mind. But I also think it's really important to not only just get rid of it, but also like learn to cope with things that you need when it comes to forgiveness. And mastering the art of forgiveness, and it's mastering the art of forgiving yourself. And I've found, I'm going to do it in like just a kind of like basic way. I will do a workshop on this, but more along the lines of just like you gave your love to people at the time and it felt right, and you gave them what you could, and you love them, and you love them fully. And I think that in itself is what you need to look at. And that's how beautiful that is, that you give love to people even though they can't receive it. And a lot of the times the people, well, pretty much everyone that I've always like been friends with or been with, and I've given them love and they've left me, it's because they can't receive it, because they don't have that sort of level of love within themselves. And I've been for years grappling how to tell myself that, and how to tell myself it's okay that you gave your love to this person. It's not a waste of time, because I always think I wasted my time with these people. It's just a waste of time. But how is it a waste of time when you've learned what you know now? So that's something really important. But I will get to that when I do the workshop on it, because that is like an entire subject in itself. Where is mine? Was it my concealer? It was the contour. Oh, I forgot that I need tissues for this. Okay, so the next thing that I was dealing with was change of thought patterns and change of priorities. Now, I've always had a lot of priorities around the way that I look at money, because that's always been something that like it's just been a big focal point of my life. And I just kind of like, I almost like forget my dreams when I think about money, and I just think about making it. And it's almost like to a point where like I'm like, I just want to make it. I don't really care what I'm doing. And I'll find all these ways that I can make money and do things, but then I'm just like, and something's always like holding me back, because it's just really not my true purpose. It's not what I want to do, and it's not how I want to experience this lifetime, making money, like doing things that I don't want to do, because that's what I've been doing. Not aligning with my true purpose. And now that I'm aware of my true purpose and this desperation is still sitting, I'm not actually aligning with it completely. And I think it's really important that you've really got to trust the process, but it's not really easy to trust the process. I mean, I think I've made a video on this before, just like trusting the universe isn't easy when you have all the reasons why you shouldn't. But all the reasons why you shouldn't are still you. So that's in itself like a whole paradox. But it's really interesting when you've flipped the switch, and you flip the switch in like the basis of a couple of weeks, and you've just kind of woken up and realized what you really, really want, and what ultimately my biggest value in this lifetime is freedom. And it's like it's evident in my chart. My chart tells me like I'm ninth house heavy, and that's freedom, that's truth seeking, that's liberation, that's philosophy, it's higher levels of learning, it's spirituality, it's all the things that I'm actually already doing and the things that I am seeking. Now, I can do that by unlocking my voice, which is I've got my Chiron in Cancer conjunct my South Node in the third house, which is the wounds around my voice and the way that I conduct myself, because I keep myself in a safe zone. Oh, we have line. I have found myself recently in these past couple of weeks, I've over the past couple of months, I've struggled to stay grumpy at things. Things don't really affect me as heavily as they used to, and I don't find that they're as important to be grumpy at, because I don't really want to stay in that energy for too long. But when I want to be grumpy, I actually don't have the energy to be grumpy. I don't have the like. It just kind of like it really. I start to see it like, it's like water off a duck's back sort of thing. I'm like, oh, like Louisa, why do you need to stay in that lower vibration? I was like, is this going to be productive? Are you going to be getting anything out of this? And I could just feel myself talk myself out of the feelings of being sort of in that lower vibration. It's like I can't really access it anymore. And you find that when you do grow and you do experience like your spiritual journey, and you start to ascend more, you don't really have the space for lower levels. Like obviously you will feel sadness and you'll feel hurt and you'll feel anger, but it'll start to integrate in you with the space of understanding. It's like, okay, well, what have I learned from this? And it'll be less like the universe is out to get me, and it's more about how is this going to serve me, or how is this experience serving me, or how am I going to learn from this? So I always really like to look at things and go, okay, I understand that this is part of the journey and part of my journey, but it's less ego and it's more soul, which is amazing. And it's amazing to be able to experience that. And I have really seen that in myself in the past couple of weeks. Like we don't need to stay in that low vibration. We don't need to stay grumpy, you know? Like I can, and I used to not always get grumpy, but I just would just get frustrated by things that just didn't work out. But then I'm like, when you come to a bigger state of peace within yourself, you start to look out from a wider perspective and go, okay, well, I can maybe just figure things out a different way. And then they end up working out pretty much every time. So it's been wonderful to see a shift like that and within myself, because to be honest with you, sometimes you feel like there's going to be things that will like last for lifetimes with you, and then you suddenly notice that they'll just go. And it's really interesting because this specific eclipse and retrograde season, I don't think I've felt anything like this ever. I had one of the Scorpio Taurus eclipses that I watched one time, and I was on the beach and it was really beautiful. But there was nothing like the release that I had. And mind you, I actually don't have any planets in Aries. I have my Ceres in Libra, and Ceres is also all about like nurturing, mother, also that polarity and darkness and light. It's Ceres is an asteroid as well, by the way. So it's not one of the main focal points of the chart, but it is a deeper part of the chart as well. Ceres was the mother of Persephone. Persephone left her mum to go hang out with Hades, Pluto, in the underworld because she was having lots of fun because he stole her. They were having lots of fun. Ceres got really upset because she found that she put the world into darkness every time Persephone went down into the underworld. And then they realized that, actually went on a tangent, but I want to talk about this anyway because it's really interesting. So Ceres got really upset because when Hades stole Persephone, she went down to the underworld, realized she was vibing hard, and then she stayed there. And so what Ceres did, it was took the whole world into darkness and cold. So that's where we get our cold months from. Now, because they realized that all the crops were dying, animals were dying, the gods were like, babe, we need to do something. And she's like, well, we need to come to equilibrium. And Persephone is like, why don't I come up for 6 months a year and then go down 6 months a year? That's where we get summer, spring, autumn, winter from, is because Persephone is vibing at the top and then she's vibing at the bottom. So my Ceres is that. So Ceres feels very deeply. Ceres likes to serve and Ceres likes to nurture. And because mine is in Libra, my Ceres is all about helping others and serving. And they also feel deeply when I get deeply hurt, because Libra on the shadow aspect can be very people pleasy and also give a much of itself. And I have done that in my lifetime. So this got amplified during this eclipse season where Libra, the shadow aspect of Libra was so loud and I saw it, which leads me to my next point, is that I've realized in my time where certain friendships and I just don't align anymore, and where I don't want to be taken advantage of anymore in places where I feel like I am. And there's conversations that I need to have with certain friends about that, which is coming up. But at the time, I hadn't really wanted to discuss it. But I feel as though that if you have experienced some sort of gigantic release and alignment and realizations during this time, it's going to hit certain parts of your chart. It doesn't even matter if you don't have planets in a sign. I don't have planets in Aries. Aries is like smack bang in the middle of my 12th house. I've got Aries, a little bit of Pisces, because I don't do whole signs all that often. I've got a little bit of Pisces, Aries, and then Taurus in my 12th house. So I've got 3 planets in my 12th house, and then Aries is just hanging out there. So my rule of my Aries is Leo, and the Leo is like my full self, is bold, is loud, is expressive. So that part of me got ignited. So I really kind of like took control, which was amazing. And I feel like, because this eclipse was so connected to so many other things that were going on, and so many other, like, if you're on any sort of spiritual sort of like database, or Instagram or TikTok, you'll notice there was a lot of light codes that came in. Speak of a lot of portals, probably the light portals, and a lot of healing, a lot of activation. So it kind of just kept rolling. And if you felt it so deeply on a level, you would have been hit by it. I know that, like, even Nathan's been hit by it, and he's just like, I'm exhausted, and I'm like, same, babe. So it's quite remarkable. But the way that I've noticed the shifts within me is that I've had to navigate them really slowly. And I don't want to rush them because I don't want to kind of like scare myself off a little bit, because I know the ego is very, very tied to itself. And I did a channeling session for myself, and I realized that my ego might want to attach itself to something else. So I just need to put my ego to some good use. And I don't want to get rid of her because she is me and she is like the human part of me. And I chose her to come here. I chose this ego part of me. So I need to not like completely abandon her. I know people go like, get rid of your ego. It's just like, oh no, it's kind of your human version. You really do require it, but you just got to give it a different job. Um, Stop letting it run the show. It's not going to run the show. If it runs the show, it's not going to work for you. You get your information from your higher self. You get your information from the ethers. You get your information from your intuition, from your inspiration, and the ego does all the groundwork for you, because this is where it is. It's not up there. It's here. So you're looking, if you're limited by ego, you're looking through the lens of what you already know, not what you can actually bring in. So that's the ego in itself. So it had a big breakdown. And so I'm just on watch on where it kind of likes, where it wants to go. But it's also managing it and telling that it's okay to feel a certain way, but let's put our energy into something else. And so that's also using the shadow. And the shadow is connected to the ego, but shadow is also connected to a deeper part of you that feels hurt, that needs to be seen. So if you can try and start integrating them together and go, hey, like, let's just use the power of the whatever frustration you may hold. I'm going to use this into a creative ability. They're like, oh, well, I've got a job to do, and they're going to go and do it. So that's like the power of that ego. And I think that's really, really cool. I'm also feeling a kind of bigger state of having FOMO less. I used to get like a little bit more FOMO. I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that, or I don't really have that. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? You're not really living for you if you just sit there and like have FOMO all the time. So I found that that's a big part of me that's been released. And it's also like obviously a big ego part. Oh my God, there's just so much there. Big ego part of me, which is amazing because I feel just more aligned and more in my body and more in control of my body, which is actually a really cool thing to say out loud and to be so centered within myself, because I've also found that it came to my business as well. And I was looking at, well, what am I not doing enough of? I'm not doing enough. And that was always this rolling narrative that like my ego would tell me, you're not doing enough work. And then I would get really overwhelmed, and then I would just like stop and freeze. So I've just kind of like realigned myself to new ideas and things that I want to be doing, which I will be bringing out, and obviously like tell all of you guys about it, because this is what we're doing. But the coolest thing that I realized when it comes to every time I do have some sort of like either up level or like emotional release or some sort of, some sort of just complete shift in myself, I'll revert back to my chart every time. I'm like, where is this? Where the fuck is this? And then I'll notice within myself, I'll notice where the chart comes alive in a different area for me. And I'll notice where like how, and this was more, mine was more like the south node heavy. And I always also realized like my blockages and a lot of like, because my south node's connected to my chiron, they're conjunct. So I know that that's a part of me that's quite, I've really brought that in from another life. Oh my God, thank you for that. But that's fine. So the amazing thing about astrology and spiritual growth and development is that your chart will come alive and make more sense to you over time, which is just the coolest thing about astrology. You just don't get one reading and then like you can go on your merry way and you never need that information again. It is a consistent part of you that grows and rolls with you, and it waits for you to need it. Like you'll come to another part of your chart, and then it's almost like, oh, I've been waiting for you to realize me and like why I'm here. It's so remarkable. Honestly, if you haven't got like, if you haven't got an astrology reading before, and if you're really, really thinking about getting one because you really want to know who you are, it is honestly probably the best system that you can use if you are someone who can maybe struggle with being a little bit more open to esoteric language and esoteric ways of living, because it's not for everyone. But astrology is like the gateway, and it's also like just sits and underlines everything that's working with you, because there's just so many facets of your life that are there. And when it comes to understanding yourself, and then you get a reading, and then it'll keep growing, like your chart will grow more with you, and you'll just get yourself, and then you hold more compassion for you, and you're like, oh, I get why I'm like that. And over time, you get less annoyed at yourself for being a certain way, but you'll be like, oh, no, I now know why. And I now know why this is here for me to be able to grow and expand. I just really wanted to do my eyebrows off camera. I just don't think I would have been able to do it at the same time. Now, if you haven't got a reading yet and you're really, really thinking about it, and it's just like this, this video has reached you and you're like, fuck, like I'm hit a pivotal point in my lifetime and I really just need some guidance and answers, a reading would be amazing for you. Now, I do have my Aries season deal rolling until the 19th of March. And it's my astrology blueprint reading, as well as the daily devotions that I have. And if you don't know what my daily devotions are, I've just basically created like a program for you, morning and evening routines based on your sun, ascendant, and moon. So your morning routine will be your sun and your ascendant, because it's like the waking part of you, it's the outwardly, like the part of you that you see and the world sees. And then your night routine is based on your moon sign, so it's just like nurturing that moon as before you go to sleep. So if you haven't, and so both of those collectively are 322, and that's only going to be running until the 19th of March, and then both of them will be separated after that. So the reading on its own is 244.44 for the astrology reading, and the daily devotions is 111. But if you join my mailing list, then I give you 10% off. So I'll put the link to my mailing list at the bottom. So if you guys want to join that as well, I don't send out spammy emails. I just send like little kind of cute things that are going on in the cosmos and things that I think of, and I kind of just brain dump in them. And anytime I have inspiration on something, I love to write it down. So that's usually what mine are all about as well. But if you feel like if this is called for you, if this feels like something that you're interested in, I also do obviously readings on Zoom. And if you do live in the Gold Coast, I can do a reading for you in the Gold Coast. I go to like cute cafes. So I really like going to cute cafes. It's a nice ambient vibe, and it's like quite neutral as well. Do you know what I mean? So, okay. I think I'm pretty much done with. Yeah, no, I'm pretty much done. I feel like I've said everything that I wanted to say, because this was more like an update on me, but I really feel like the collective shifts have happened in so many people in the cosmos right now, and we're all just really kind of feeling it. And I want you to know that you're seen and you're heard and you're acknowledged and you're not alone. And if you're crying in the shower, that's fine. Cry in the shower. It's a good place to cry. Everything's wet everywhere. Anyway, just let it out. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you got anything out of this video, if this video was, useful to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It'll help my channel grow. It's like really small at the moment, but it won't be one day. So you can be like one of the founding members. And like it and share it with your friends. Done one with sky, one eye. All right.